Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this interview by Core Recruitment. Thank you very much for joining us today. Can't believe that International Women's Day is coming around again so quickly, 12 months on, and hopefully everybody is in much better space. Now, as it's International Women's Day, we are speaking to a number of different female leaders who we find to be inspirational. You can see Karen cringing already when I say the word inspirational, but she is. So we're going to be having a little chat with Karen about her background, experience, and her take on International Women's Day as well. How are you today, Karen?
I'm extremely well, thank you, Krishnan, and I hope all our listeners or viewers are too, and enjoying a cup of coffee or whatever the day brings.
Absolutely. And for those that don't know you, can you give us a little bit about you, your background, your experience?
Yeah, of course. Be as quick as possible without boring everybody. Hospitality has been my working life. From being a waitress in Betty's in New York when I was 18, through waitressing in the States when I was on my gap year, when I was at university in the UK and America, and then founding Café Rouge, buying with 4 others 3,500 pubs, enough pubs for any woman, I always think, and then also having the honour to have a plural career now. So I'm executive chairman of PREZZO, I'm chairman of Hawksmoor and Mowgli. Wonderful, all wonderful businesses. I sit on a board of a flavors and fragrance company in Geneva, a global company, which is really interesting, sort of upstream for our industry. I'm a commissioner of the Crown Estate. And so I think it's an honour and a privilege to be associated with all these wonderful enterprises.
And on the board of Deliveroo as well, right?
Yeah, recent, sorry, I should have mentioned that. I joined the board of Deliveroo about 6 months ago, and that is equally fascinating.
Little thing, Karen. Now, coming on to International Women's Day, what does it mean to you?
I just think that I suppose in my heart of hearts, I think that women should be celebrated often and loudly, so I guess that I was always slightly torn about this, because I think, well, actually, do we need, because I really so firmly and passionately believe that there should be no need to sort of big up women because they do it for themselves every day, every hour, and so why is it needed? And so I suppose that's a slight strand of my thinking. But the other, I think, on the other hand, and more importantly, there are so many women doing so many fantastic things across the globe, that I think anything that brings that to people's attention and celebrates it must be worthwhile. So yeah, it's terrific.
Absolutely. Now, regarding the question of pay, I mean, there's been legislation, there's been lots of reports that have been put out, but we're still not at parity when it comes to pay, and when it comes to kind of the male-female split. Why do you think that is, and what do you think we can do to address it?
Well, you and I were just talking about this, and I think, I think it's just, again, it's so astonishing to me that it's just a question. I mean, there should be no question, should there, that men and women get paid the same for the same job. And for our industry, it should be just a non-question. And I think in a lot of cases it is. I think that what we were discussing, and I think it's probably true, is that women's career paths might be somewhat different, and therefore it might lead to them potentially being slightly left behind in the pay scales, and I think that's something we need to think about. So if it is true that women stay longer in particular jobs and therefore aren't constantly benchmarking their pay against the external market, then that's something we need to be very cognizant of. And you know what, I think that, and we might talk a bit more about this later on, Krishnan, but I think that when you look over the last extraordinary 2 years, and also the last extraordinary sort of 8 months, where we have found ourselves plunged into this recruitment crisis, this people shortage, I think that as with all things, crises when they come along, I think you also have to think about what are ills of the past that are being visited upon us. What could we have done better to prevent some of this depth of recruitment issues that we're all experiencing? And of course, there are things we could have done. I think in many cases, we have continued to work in possibly outmoded ways in terms of hours expected, and the people working very long hours in very hot kitchens and expecting that of people that come in now probably is something we should have thought about a long time before. Ditto pay scales, and of course always training. I think there's areas where we've excelled, but I think there's also areas of an industry that we need to look at very hard and be very and really be very cognizant of that, and possibly making sure that women, if they are tending to stay longer in organisations, which of course is absolutely wonderful, they're not only being promoted and developed, but they're also being paid congruent to their skill levels.
Absolutely. Now, on advice that you would give to kind of like young female leaders who are developing their management skills, who are building their confidence, what would you advise that they do if they were like really serious about their career development?
First of all, I think that the basis of everything is confidence, and I always think that when I'm talking to young women who are coming into hospitality, if there's one thing that I could give them, if I had a magic wand and I could give them one thing, it would be confidence, because I think confidence is so important in allowing you to have a go. If you make a mistake, to get up and go again, to never perceive that there is any boundary, any limits to what you can do, effectively to feel your power and to really go for it, if that's what you want. I mean, obviously happiness is a massive part of this as well, so you have to make sure that you're happy in what you're doing and fulfilled in what you're doing, and then of course that will also add to that quota of confidence. But I think it's really making sure that you're in an organization where you can be developed, where you can see your next step, because hospitality is so fantastic at giving people responsibility early. And I think that I also happen to think it's a wonderful career for women, because I think women have a natural, excuse me here, Krishnan, and I think lots of guys have it too, but I do think if you want a natural fund of EQ, then I think we know where to go to. And I was told something a long time ago, which I've never forgotten, which was, I think it might be opposite for International Women's Day, but pre-industrial revolution, everything was about muscle mass, about how far you could walk, what you could carry, etc., etc. So men were certainly in the vast majority in the workforce. Industrial revolution brought in the need for IQ, and of course then women entered the workforce in ever increasing numbers. And now, when every business in some sense, and hospitality at the forefront, is about EQ, is about that emotional connection with your customer. Are you actually making them feel genuinely wanted, nurtured, cared for, sending them out into the world better than when they came into your restaurant, bar or cafe or pub? Is that that women do possess that, because they're so good at juggling things, they're so good at managing lots of different situations, lots of different people. And so I think that that's why hospitality is one of the reasons why hospitality is so great for women. It also can fit very well with having a family, and also if you have an entrepreneurial germ of an idea, then it's a great place for actually bringing that to realization. So I think that being a company where you can see that you're happy, cared for, and that you can care for it in turn, and you can see the next development step, and that you can go as fast as your talents and your aspirations will carry you. I think that's how you progress. And also, going back to what I said before, is just don't perceive boundaries where no boundaries exist.
Absolutely, very, very good advice. From a company perspective, what initiatives do you think that companies can kind of take on to promote women in leadership roles?
It's about management skills, I think. A lot of it is about, when I think about how proud we are as an industry to give many people their first job. So people who have no desire to pursue tertiary education, in fact, possibly not even a great deal of secondary education, if they have the aptitude and the character and the desire to work hard and look after people, then I think that it's wonderful what hospitality can do in terms of offering people their first job and then promoting them and developing them. And I think that I do think that as you work your way up or through hospitality, you reach a level where being given really good management skills, being taught how to lead, inspire, communicate, plan, opens a whole new sort of raft of opportunity for you. And whether that is in hospitality, which is of course where I hope those skills will be used, or whether it's somewhere else, I think it's something that we can give to people growing in our industry, which is entirely transferable.
Absolutely. Slightly unscripted question, Karen, but just in terms of looking at your career journey, your experience, even, I mean, having dealt with you through the pandemic, etc. I mean, your resilience level and your positivity are both pretty much off the chart. What do you have your Weetabix every morning? I mean, what keeps you what keeps you going? Where does the fire in the belly come from?
Emotionally, because I love what I'm doing and the people around me. So that's probably the most important secret ingredient. Well, it's not very secret, really, is it? But if you love what you're doing, you believe in it, and you're truly engaged, and that's great fuel. And physically, exercise. I'm not quite sure how you're going to juggle it all. Is exercise that always seems to sort my head out and allow me to go again.
Wow. So when you have if you ever have a bad day, do you go for a run?
Actually, I do my exercise very first thing in the morning. So I've had the same very resilient trainer for 22 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so and she comes at some ungodly hour in the morning. So, but then, however much I hate it, I remember reading an interview with Gillian Lynn, the woman who choreographed Cats, who was just amazing. And she said that however much you hate it in the morning, whatever you feel like you have to get out of bed and do your exercises. And I think that's true. I think it's good for the head and the body.
Yeah, absolutely.
My mother, by the way, was a yoga teacher, and she was a real inspiration in that regard.
Excellent. It's really good to know. In terms of like sector, outside of sector, industry leaders who you look up to, people you take inspiration from, who do you look up to, or who do you take that from?
So many women in our industry, and so many, but I think if you're asking for one person, and it will be my aforesaid mother, who died at the age of 90 4 years ago, but she was the only person who, when I said I was going to leave, the only sort of proper job I've ever had. When I left university, I went into advertising as an account planner, which I loved, by the way, for a year and a half. But I always had this. I think all the entrepreneurs who may be listening to this will know what I mean, and you'll know, Krishnan, is that if you have an idea, and it's certainly nothing to do with money or fame, or it's quite the opposite, but it's just something that is in your head that you can't get rid of, and you know you have to go and do it. So when I said that I was going to actually jump ship and going back to restaurants, on the floor of restaurants, just working restaurants to really get under the skin of it and really understand things. Before I started Cafe Rouge, she was the only person who didn't really think that I was crazed. And I think that when you talk about positivity, which is a hugely important quality in life, particularly during these very difficult times to navigate, and I think that I owe her a great debt of gratitude for that.
Wow. And in terms of going back to perhaps to your marketing self, kind of like, you know, all those years ago, what advice would you give yourself, or what would you go back and whisper in your ear to stop you running into some walls?
You know, I think it's very closely allied to the confidence bit of our conversation, and I think it does come with confidence. It comes with perhaps some experience as well. But what I would say to myself is just say it as it is. So if I think a lot of time is wasted in businesses and in boardrooms by people dancing around a subject, or putting off a decision, or not really saying, you know, what the elephant in the room is. Look, however uncomfortable this is, team, whatever the sensibilities are here, we're not going to get anywhere unless we address this, and the thing is this. And I think that for me is whenever you feel that, and sometimes it is quite daunting to do that, but however you bring that about, I do think it really is getting to the nub of the matter, really doing the thinking and saying, this is the issue, and this is the issue we have to address and bring our best thinking to, is it's always right. It might be difficult, but it's always right.
Excellent. Karen, thank you so much for taking the time and running over things with us this morning. I think that was great and really good suggestions. And I'm going to feel inspired to wake up and get out of bed every morning and really go and do some exercise. I think that's a good thing.
Krishnan, thank you very much for asking me. I'm very honoured, and to everybody listening or watching this, can I just say have a wonderful International Women's Day.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.